Hello everyone, my name is Leila Sanchez and this is my midterm game assignment, Trials of Love Overview. Please refer to my previous upload to see the original planning template I created before starting this project. Throughout my game, you'll notice I imported assets, for example, art from the marketplace and audio from Kenny.nl. I ended up importing a majority of the assets used in my levels from the Unreal Epic Marketplace. I also did my best to make the game visually appealing. The four principles of OOP, or better known as object-oriented programming, are abstraction, polymorphism, encapsulation, and inheritance. To start off with abstraction, which hides unnecessary details from other programmers, I added custom inputs and outputs to a macro used in my macro library. I created a simple macro in that library that can confirm whether the actor is the player pawn or not. So let's get that open. All right, this is my is player pawn macro. Double click that, and as you can see, it has over here some custom inputs, the actor to check, and as well as the outputs, whether or not it is true or false. If it is the player, it shall execute. If it's not the player, execute something different. Pretty simple, but a good foundation to build on top of. Next would be polymorphism. For this, every blueprint we create uses functions or calls used in other places or different blueprints. Looking at encapsulation, we can view any blueprint with custom functions. For example, let me open up the chase damage jar blueprint that I created. I would like to give a little explanation of my destroy actor and damage player functions I have. Double clicking those. This is my destroy actor function. It takes advantage of my macro is player pawn. If so, print the string. This is for debug. Spawn actor blueprint and then destroy actor. Get actor transform. Target is actor self, in this case the jar, so it will make a sound on jar. Collision. Looking at the damage player function, this was tricky to figure out. You need to actually add custom input parameter to the function to signify the actor to damage, and I did this by simply typing in actor, scrolling down a bit, actor under object types, and then clicking on object reference. So that's the parameter I set. I set this to be the target of get component by class the health player, which I'll show later on in the video. Or you could actually refer to my previous video to see more in depth the health component, health player, all that stuff. These are used in my event graph. On this event actor begin overlap event, you could see the benefits of using encapsulation. It just provides a way cleaner blueprint code output instead of having something like this, my vector math, for example. You could definitely probably compress that and make it a lot cleaner and simpler. for the event graph. Simple cost of functions, and then the player to damage, actor to check is going to be the other actor. So whichever other actor is going to overlap with the jar in this case. And this is the jar. I also added a collision component to this. I made it a movable object as it does chase the player as well. But getting sidetracked here. The last principle of OOP to go over would be inheritance, where I can say every blueprint I created gets properties from the actor class at least, and plus whatever I add to them. In order to demonstrate my use of variables though, I would often change speed or amount to damage as a variable. So looking at this damage jar variables, you could see that I have these right here: speed of jar, amount to damage player. And I'm also gonna go on ahead and open up my Get Me Heart blueprint just to show you that it has very similar components. Variables, I misspoke, I'm so sorry. So here I have my point value as an example, where I call this and a separate location as well. When I double click this, or my update points, I'm sorry, when I double click my update points, this is actually a custom event I created, which I'll go more over in depth later on. Let's see. I will now refer back to my chase damage jar blueprint to explain movement and vector math, the fun part. Let's see. On the event tick, you can see that I had to cast to my GPE game instance, which also takes advantage of the singleton pattern. Set game instance as the object. Following that, set actor location. I tried to put a bunch of notes so that way I could better understand this concept myself to explain it better to you. This whole concept is, well, more so this whole block of nodes intention is to chase the player, for lack of a better term. First step, cast a game instance. Second step, really stretch out set actor location to get the vector math. Now of this, we are going to look at this section where it returns the vector of selected actor or pawn location, as you could change it for whatever you need. It's interchangeable depending on what code you use or what you need this code to do for you. And we are going to plug this into a subtraction node from the actor location self, in this case the damage jar. So this is just going to return the vector difference between the two. The vector distance difference between the two, which is this output value here. After that, we are going to normalize this value. More or less, this makes it equal to 1. Simplify for me. Following this, you will take this return value, and we're going to want to multiply this by a couple different things. starting, so we want to multiply by a normalized value to get a return speed multiplied by the actor location difference. Sounds complicated, but it works. Here we are going to multiply a variable value, which I set speed of jar, default to 100, but obviously it's changeable as it is visible and editable for other developers. And we multiply this by the delta seconds from the event tick. Now, when you multiply by delta seconds, this, as a reference in any code, not even just this instance, it converts the value to be frame rate independent. So this vector return value is now frame rate independent, which we will then multiply by our normalized value. And then take the return value of this and add it to the actor location with the target self, in this case, the jar, and take this return value after the addition is complete, set it as a new location. Ta-da! Pretty simple. Thank you. To hit the next point, I created a trigger box that loads my next level when the player pawn collides with it. Let's get that open, actually. The load level. Alright. As you see, the native parent class is trigger box, parent class trigger box. So this is my trigger box. I take advantage of the macro I created. I print a debug string, load next level, GG, whatever, it's just for me. And then I also open the level by name, and I try to keep the level names pretty simple for now at least. And it functioned, it works. Can't complain too much. Take a look at the viewport, just a little box, and whenever I go ahead and drag it out, I just adjust the shape scale as needed for whatever the location calls for. I use a game instance to take advantage of the singleton pattern. Let's go on ahead and open that up as well. Let's see, I try to keep it organized. Singleton pattern, game singletons, and I just named it GPE 104 underscore game instance, just so I know what it is. This code is currently not connected, just some trial and error code. Looking over here though, I track the lives and player points variables and call a custom event right over here. Sorry if it's a little blurry. On player death, that will create a game over widget if the lives, and also print a debug string, if the lives are less than or equal to 1. Here is the condition here, or less than or equal to 0. I'm sorry. Oh, we're lagging here. This is how I print my game over screen widget. I print my string, create widget, class game over widget, add it to my viewport, set the mouse cursor visibility, target player controller, us in this case, the player controlling the player pawn. I also set game paused. Just a nice little feature, and I have to check this boolean to double verify. If the branch returns false here, it's going to set a new variable for the value of lives. So we're going to take the current lives minus 1, set current level name, return value, and this will just reload the level after subtracting a life point. Level name, open level by name. So if you connect it, it'll do this sweet little do for you. Moving on, I am super excited to mention my Get Me Heart blueprint. Let's get that open under my blueprints folder right here. I purchased actually an asset pack from the marketplace and I imported it and it's beautiful. Let's start at the viewport. Bask in the glory. I was able to successfully add a working sphere collision component. I felt like it worked the best in this case. And I was also able to set it to trigger as well. I will demonstrate that right down here. Trigger collision presets. Character can step up on. Generate overlap events. Simulate generate hits events. Okay, perfect. Let's take a look at the event graph now. This was super complicated, by the way, to figure out how to do. I was stressing. So here I just have on event actor begin overlap. I will use my macro once again, check if the overlapping actor is the player pawn or the third person player. I will then cast to the blueprint third person character, which is where I set a point value so that way it would always be displayed. I then created this variable right here. You'll see it has the underscore under, even though it's not printed there, as an integer, so that way developers could also adjust it to their liking. And I also took advantage of the update points function. And then I followed it up with a destroy actor because I don't want you stacking up your points. Referring back to my points component right up here, as I mentioned previously, I created a custom event called update points with a parameter, an input parameter marked as an integer that is adjustable. I just named it value, which signifies the point overall total. I linked these components majority to my widgets, so I found that it was easier to create a component rather than a blueprint or something other to connect it and have it functioning to my UI. All right, looking at the third person blueprint, get that open. Give it a second to load. I ended up using some simple input actions calls starting with key events. So let's get into that. This is my key event. I made it so on key press M, the mesh material of the actor is going to change. This was a very fun Easter egg to include. You also have to enable input for the player controller. And that is down here. So I made a sequence nodule, so on event begin play, it will run this as the 0th execution following my enable input. And this is going to tell the game to listen for key presses or any special events that I would declare or define in my code. For the is input key down function right here, let me make this a little bit smaller so we could have more screen. For the is input key down function right over here, it's a default function found when you find the context sensitivity turned off. For example, if you right click, you would have to unclick this checkbox to be able to pull the is input key down. I believe this is also most easily used with the event tick event right here, this one. I had to use a branch for the condition or boolean to change the mesh to a different actor color on button press N. What is it? Right over here. It lets you define the key press. And the major difference between the two is that you don't need to enable input when using the is input key down function, as it references a target value. As you can see here, I define my target value to be the player controller us, but you could define it to be anything. So the possibilities are endless there, I'll tell you that. I also implemented spawn and destroy actors in various points throughout my code. The most important one, I guess, we could look at would be the chase damage jar. It's very simple, but when the player presses up here, let me zoom in, when the player presses 1 on the keyboard, it will spawn an actor at the player pawn's location. This was tricky to figure out. Did it by myself, no Googling. And I connected the return value to this target, or when it is released, it shall destroy. So I connected the target to the return value of this blueprint so that way it will destroy itself when I release this button 1. I created a user interface folder that holds my HUD information and menus. Look at that. Give it a second to load, sorry. I did not end up using this check texture, so disregard that. This is my game over widget. I'll go through one by one. I tried to make it symmetrical, aesthetically pleasing as best as I could. I did what I could with what I could. Say it like that. All the buttons do function properly, and it does spawn when you run out of lives or if you make it to the end of the game. Looking at the event graph, just to show you that I did program the buttons. On clicked restart button. Pro tip, name your buttons so you know what they are. So it's not just like button 1 or button 0. On clicked restart button, I am going to open the level. I should probably reconfigure that actually. Disregard my issue previously. Moving on the on clicked quit game button, it's simply going to run the default pre-built function that comes with Unreal Engine, quit game. Simple like that. And that will exit you out of the game back to your desktop. When you click the quit to main menu button, it's going to open level by name, which I ended up creating a level blueprint that holds my main menu. So a player pawn would not spawn, nor would a level background, nor all that stuff. It's just a blank empty level that houses my widget. And this right here is just my trial code, you know, trial and error. It happens. Doesn't work, not in use, but I kept it. Moving on, I have this health bar I created and customized. As long as it loads up, I change the colors. I put a little bit of an outline. You see I've got purple and pink, a shade of red and black, and this is actually a different color once you're in the game. I also linked the health progress bar. I believe I bound it. Okay. So looking at the graph, we could see how I took advantage of the health percent bar. Starting with my get health percent text function. It's a simple get health percent as string, and we are going to append this to a to text string and then return this to the return node. So that will get us a percentage. Right here, append just means turn as a percent and print it to the screen. That's the intention of that function. The intention of the health bar percent, to update it, the update health bar function, excuse me, is to set percent with the target being the progress bar, which you could just drag and drop from the variable that gets automatically created when you use the project bar right here. And following that, we want to get the in percent, which I ended up creating a custom input parameter to be a float. Multiply that by 100, and we are going to floor it, which basically rounds down to get rid of the decimal. This will convert my integer to a string, and we are finally going to set the health percent as string rather than numbers, so it displays nicely to the player. After this, I have my very simple main menu widget, but it does function. Getting it open, I tried to keep it similar colors, very easy to understand, straight to the point. All my buttons function. I have everything contained within a vertical box because that's nice. For my graph, this is just showing that all my buttons do function. On click start new game, we are going to load the first level, which by name is going to be Safe House Level 1. We're going to set the mouse cursor visibility just in case it would be on for some reason, for the player controller, and we're gonna uncheck this checkbox. Following that, set input mode game only, so that way we know we are not accessing any widgets, user interface, anything like that. When we click the quit game button, so if you rage quit, you run out of lives, you could still have the option to exit the game easily. It'll just simply run the same code as before. For my event construct, which is a client only event, I am going to set my mouse cursor for the player controller to visible for when the input mode is UI only. So only when my main menu screen is displayed will the cursor be visible. That's what this event does. You have to return values. I could have put a second one here for easy, but I was just trying to make it make sense to myself. The last widget I believe I created is going to be this score tracker right here. Super cool, super hard to figure out. I used the same padding, separate anchors to put this display on the bottom of the screen, canvas panel, horizontal box, and I actually use the same colors, trying to make the game once again visually appealing as best as I can. I'm not a game designer. Anyway, moving on to the graph. On the event construct, we are going to cast the blueprint third-person character, get player character as the object, and we are going to set it. This just ensures that it will always be displayed throughout the entirety of the gameplay. I previously forgot to mention that I created a import folder for my kenny.nl assets. I only use some sounds, and then I created sound cues out of those, so that way I would be able to implement them in my game a lot easier. I would also like to show my levels one by one before I demonstrate a cooked version of it. So, alright, let's open a level. I have them contained, I know it's not the best, within my content folder, just loosely spread about. Starting off strong, we'll open up the main menu. As you can see, it is just a blank world. Interesting thing about this, I created a menu game mode, for lack of better terms, where the default player pawn on spawn is null or none. So that way it just loads up the widget that I created for this main menu widget right here. It'll just load this up on instant. Let me open up the level blueprint. As you can see in this level blueprint, on event begin play, I create the widget, my widget main menu, Add it to viewport. Plain and simple. I could have added the set cursor visibility, all that extra, but it works either way. So that's cool. I was just trying different ways to do different things. The next level I would like to show would be my level 1 for say. The safe house level 1. Get that open. I might actually pause the recording while it opens. It might take a while. Let me do that. After all the shaders loaded, this is my level. Some of the lights don't work. This is just a default preset map, and I made some changes to the scale of some objects, kind of just to fit my aesthetic, but I was a bit overwhelmed, to be honest, looking at all of these actors and assets that they have here. These are my self-created ones. I've got my landmine, my points. As you can see on the heart, excuse me, on the heart it says get me. I also use my healing bubbles throughout. I have a little hidden passage. You could jump over that. Also, once you get 5 hearts, you will get +1 life to your total life count, which was, once again, something really hard to figure out. At the end, I decided to make this my finished level, whatever. This is my trigger box, if I could click on it. This is my load next level, level 2 trigger box. And it functions perfectly. Okay, so now let's look at our next level. Level 2. This is a completely custom designed level that I took my sweet time designing, decorating, trying my best to make it look nice. So it should be pretty fast to load. Obviously, I increased the difficulty. I added some moving threat actors, which are these vases placed randomly throughout the course, healing bubbles, and as well as a multitude of these landmines. These landmines also have the option to be an insta-kill. Right there, default insta-kill function, and that is a function I created. A variable I created that is visible for other game developers to enable or disable. Some of them are enabled, some are disabled. I tried to make the last row all insta-kill to deter a player from falling off the map, and I also placed these flower pots to also deter the player from going off course and possibly falling off map. I did my best to ensure that it looks pretty. I added a few vines to these buildings separately, you know, little decoration. I put all these little bushes here, changed the material of the floor. And over here, I was actually able to import a character, and when the game is playing, she does a little booyah animation. Like, yay, congratulations, you did it. I also have some sparks here, as well as the word love written on top, floating above. This just ties back into the title of my game, Trials of Love. So that's what that's about. And down here, this is my trigger box. So once you run up to collide with the other actor on the screen, it will finish line, game over, end your game. You can either restart or quit game from that screen, or go back to the main menu. Either way. But these are decorations, null static mesh actors. This floor took a while to do. So yeah, just trying to give it all the credit it's due. And now I will show you that I was also able to cook a functioning playable version. I will go ahead and pause this, and once I get this open, I will resume the recording. This is the cooked version. So once you click the icon under saved, it will load up on this by default. So we can start new game or quit game off bat. It says Midterm, Leila Sanchez, my name, Trials of Love, name of my game. Go ahead and click start new game. Might take a second to load due to I'm working off of a laptop and there's a lot of textures, lights, everything like that. All right, so once you're in, you're in. Everything should increase in quality in a minute, but you can see that I have 100% health. I've got 3 lives. I've got 0 points. When I collide with these, plus 1 point. Okay? Just quickly to mention before I forget, when you press M, I'll just show you, it will change the mesh to a pink shade. And when you press N, it changes to red. I prefer pink, so that's how we shall play. Let's go. Now you could take the easy route and not get as many points, or, you could do your best. And that one was an insta-kill. So we're gonna reload on there. Takes away my points again, have to recollect. Easy route. There we go, minus 80 health. Let's actually re-heal because level 2 is a bit difficult for me, so this is like the cheese of it. I'm gonna try to jump over here so that way I could collide with the box. But this is how the level looks. I'm really happy with the aesthetic of it. It runs relatively smoothly. And so yeah, running into this end of level trigger box. You are now spawned into a new one, but you gotta be careful because there are threat actions that I am not the best at avoiding at all. So forgive me. All right, and some of these are insta kill as well. I'm not sure which ones are. But let me see this right here. Little congratulations, and you see once I got a certain amount, 5, I set the default to. I was able to gain another life, so now I'm at 4. And this is my little design. I ran into the trigger box, and now we are at our game over screen. From here, I can restart, I can quit game, or exit back to the main menu. Just to show you that my quit game works, I'll press it. Perfect. And I think that that's just about gonna wrap it up. If I left anything out, I'll upload an inclusion later. Thank you so much for watching.